This podcast is sponsored by MD Serono and AbbVie.
Hi, guys. This is Patient in You podcast, and I'm Victoria Reese. And I'm really excited about today's conversation because it hits home for me. The person I'm interviewing today, I've known my literal entire life. We share the same last name, and it is one of my relatives, my cousin. And I'm really excited to talk to her because of what we're talking about. It is a unique conversation, it's a personal conversation to her. And she hasn't really talked about it before, I'm just learning. And so she's written about it before, but not really through an interview. And so this is somewhat of a debut, but this is a safe space. And I want to make sure that the conversation is educational, but I have so many questions. I'm very curious, and I know that she will be brave and answer them accordingly. So I'm going to introduce my cousin, Jessica Reese. Hey, cuz.
Hello. Hello, everyone.
How you
Hello, cousin.
doing?
Doing good. Can't complain.
So we've got Jessica in here virtually. She is based in Detroit. That's where we're from. And I'm here in Atlanta. And so let's get right into it, Jess. So what condition are we talking about today? What health condition are we talking about?
So the health condition we're talking about today is bipolar disorder, specifically bipolar disorder 1.
Okay. And I'm going to read Jessica's bio, and then I'm going to give my own bio of Jessica real quick. Obviously, you know how I know her, but so Jessica Reese is a freelance writer, editor, and educator. She's working on her memoir entitled How Am I Alive? That she hopes will tell all the uncomfortable truths of a Black woman living with a misunderstood mental illness. And so, as I mentioned, Jessica is my cousin, but she's just not any old cousin. She's my first cousin. Our daddies are and were brothers. My dad passed. That's why I said were, but our dads are brothers. And so we are real cousins, first cousins. And like I said, I've known her my whole life. We're the same age, obviously, same hometown, 3 months apart, but literally graduated high school, same age, same year and everything. And so some of my fondest memories of Jessica is like birthday sleepovers and traveling to LA to visit your dad.
And New York.
And just
Don't
being,
forget the New York shopping trip.
And New York. Oh, yeah, shopping trips.
Yeah.
We have a lot of amazing memories, but one thing that we have in common is just having an illness. And I wanted to talk about first, before we get into Jessica talking and me asking her question, is like how I became aware of her illness of bipolar disorder. And I'll let her say when she was actually diagnosed, what year. But there was an incident that I was able to visit Jessica. And I'm going to let you tell the story, Jessica. But I actually am not part of her story, but had an experience with her as it relates to bipolar disorder. And I just remember wanting to hold her, but also understand. I felt like a lot of people, which I'm learning that so many people don't really understand bipolar disorder, and I didn't understand it. And I feel like which I'll talk about, there was another moment with her mom that I felt was really telling of how people don't know a lot about it and maybe how uncomfortable they might be when talking about it. And so I'm going to turn it over to Jess. Jess, how you
Hello.
doing?
Doing okay. You already started me.
And so don't even start. We have the tissue ready, but don't start. And so I want to talk to you about first, tell me when you were diagnosed officially.
Okay. Oh, so I would say actually my official diagnosis was just in 2021. which,
Okay.
and that was my most accurate diagnosis. So there's bipolar 1 and bipolar 2. Bipolar 2 is considered, it's still as severe, but it's, you have less, you don't have as many what's called manic episodes. Bipolar 1 is kind of like the most intense. And it wasn't until 2021, which I had to stay at a mental health institution, that I got that diagnosis. But I think my first diagnosis of just bipolar was in 2016.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
And so bipolar disorder does not define you. And so before we get into that, who is Jessica Reese? Like, who are
Hmm.
you?
Hmm. Um, Still a woman, discovering who I am, but I would just say I'm a survivor. I'm a strong person, a loving person, humorous person, like to find joy and laughter in every situation. I'm a
Hmm.
mother, a wife, a friend, a sister, a cousin, a writer, and an educator.
Yes. And so before you got your official diagnosis, were there signs? And if there were signs, did you know the signs? Like, did you think about what it was before? Like, was it accurate or you had no idea it was this?
That's a great question. Um, So I talk about this in my book. So I would say in college, I started having like moodiness. Like I could not understand how my mood um could just change, and I kind of, I don't know, kind of drastically. But it
Hmm.
wasn't anything like I experienced when I got my diagnosis. It was just like um feeling depressed, because of something that might be like considered small to other people. But it
Yeah.
wasn't those, like, that was the only sign, but I had no idea what bipolar disorder was. No idea. When I first had my official episode, which most people who are diagnosed are, I'm sorry, most people who have their first episode are 25. So when I had my first official um episode,
Mhm.
I had no idea what it was until the doctor basically told me.
You
And
had
then they kind of,
never seen anybody in a movie or TV or anything that had said by the word?
so you always hear it, right? And that's like one of the things I'll talk about, that you're bipolar if you have if you're moody, right? So if you're a woman
Right.
and you're on your cycle, she's bipolar because she's acting a certain way, or she's bipolar
Yeah, why
because
you
one
acting
day
bipolar?
exactly, you hear that all the
Yeah.
time. And I might have used it myself, but I had no idea, and maybe not even in movies, that this was a real illness,
Right.
that it was
Right.
something that, it's not. And like I said, like my college moodiness was nothing compared to bipolar disorder.
Right. Right. And did when you got your diagnosis, when you realized what it was, did you recall any instances and tell your doctor, like, a few years ago, this happened? Do you think that that was an episode? Did you ever have those
Mm,
conversations with doctors to connect the dots?
that's a good question. So, my journey is very long. When I first So I had an episode in India, and I told my doctor, and he said, "You just need to watch more TV." He's like, you traveled out of the country. You just need to sit at home and relax and watch TV." That's exactly what he told me. And
Literally watch TV.
yeah, and you saw me in a hospital, like a literal emergency room, and all he could tell
Yeah.
me was that. So I went back to the doctor after that episode because I was having bad anxiety, which
Mhm.
can also play a part in bipolar disorder. So, and he told me that. And so I went to another doctor, and he said, "You have bipolar disorder." But he didn't really tell me anything. He didn't prescribe me
So
anything.
in India, someone
That
said that.
wasn't in India. In India, they said
Oh, oh.
anxiety. They kept telling me
Oh, okay, okay.
anxiety. So that was what I was hearing. You have anxiety, you have anxiety. And I'm thinking, like, what I experience does not feel like anxiety because I know people who have anxiety.
Right.
And so it really took years because I went to a doctor and they said I have bipolar disorder. And he said, that's the most overdiagnosed mental health condition. You probably just have anxiety.
Oh.
Yeah, you probably just have anxiety.
Mhm.
Then I went to a family friend psychiatrist, and he was a really good psychiatrist, and he was able to tell me. So, to answer your question, so one of the questions I did ask him was, I have a tendency to have like a very active mind in general. So that's one of the things about bipolar disorders. Besides having the manic and depressive episodes, I said, do you have symptoms when you're not having an episode? And one of the things is just having an active mind where it's like really hard
Mm,
to shut off your
yeah.
brain and you're always constantly thinking or the wheels are always turning.
Yeah. And so for those who didn't catch the India, Jessica studied abroad in India. We're talking familiar because I know.
Mhm.
We used to Skype when you were
Yeah.
there, but well, while she was there, this is what we're referencing when we're saying India. And so, tell me about the day you got diagnosed. When he said, or she said that I believe this is what it is, was it after an episode? And then tell me the moments after that, like what you thought, how you felt.
Mm. I started, I felt very like an alien almost. Like my body, my mind was not mine anymore. Like you, and then also to know that it's lifelong, there's no cure. It kind of felt hopeless. Um,
Mhm.
and I also had a lot of denial, honestly. And I think that's probably why I went through so many different doctors because I just did not want it because like we said, every time you hear bipolar disorder, you all automatically assume that person's crazy and
Yeah.
that there's something inherently wrong with you. So, it's not like you have an illness, but there's something wrong with you as a person. And
Yeah.
so that was a part that it just made me feel like, I'll never have real good relationships, or I'll never feel normal, or I'll never, I'll always kind of be messed up, you know. So
Yeah.
that was the feeling.
And so you mentioned denial.
Hmm.
Um, elaborate on the denial. Can you recall how long you may have been in denial or and then what that denial looked like for you?
It was years because even when they
Mm,
prescribed medication, um, I had to go through a lot of medication to get to where I am today. So the medication would make me feel suicidal. And so I said, okay, I can't do this. And then my parents, and I'm really interested in hearing your story, what you said about my mom, but they had no clue. Like they just, you know, I don't think they dealt with their own issues. So it's kind of like they did not want, like they could never even say bipolar disorder. I don't even think they say the word. So
and
I
that
didn't
was
really,
then or that is now too?
even now, a little bit, even now. They'll say she's
We'll
going
get
through,
to that. We're
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
get to
yeah,
that. We're gonna get
yeah.
to that.
But
Okay, but
so
your denial.
so I was in denial one because I didn't know what it was, and all I heard was like the negative part of it. And two, because the medications weren't working, and I didn't like the idea of taking medication forever. I just kind of didn't want to be a patient. I didn't want to be sick. I didn't want to be, have an illness. So I just didn't want to take the medication. So it took me
Yeah.
years. Yeah, so it took years to really just accept it, um, and like study and research. And I even went to a support group. I went to a bipolar disorder support group. That was a
Okay.
couple of years ago. Yeah, and I went to a support group to really um, to accept to accept it. And like
That
it's
was
still,
just recently or that was in the beginning?
this was actually only a couple of years ago. So in the beginning, I
Okay.
really was just like out there. I really was. I was just, I went to I went to I went to a mental health institution. It was like, oh, she's going through her thing again, and so that was like a thing. It was never like
Yeah.
she's having an episode. She needs help and she needs to
Yeah.
heal. It was just like I'm having a thing, and then I would be on medication, and if it wasn't, right for me, kind of, I did get to a point in 2016 where I was interacting with my psychiatrist more. So, but in the beginning, I just was completely in denial. I didn't want to take the medication. I didn't want this illness.
What about taking
Mhm.
the medication,
Yeah.
what about it didn't you want? Like, was it this acceptance that you just weren't trying to accept?
It was, first, psychiatric medications are very strong and severe, right? So
Mhm.
it takes a long time for them to get into your system and
Okay.
do the work that it's supposed to do because you're dealing with the brain and it's a very sensitive organ. So in the beginning, I was having like suicidal thoughts on some medication. Then there's a lot of research now coming out that a lot of antidepressants, which they were giving me, are worse for bipolar disorder patients because they
Mm,
increase suicidal thoughts. So
okay.
the medicine that was supposed to treat me was making me more depressed. And then I had a husband, right? And his family is very against, like they're pretty much against medication. And he was really like, "You're strong enough to do this on your own." So I would
I
go,
remember
yeah,
this.
I would go through episodes without any medication, and I would come out of it, but it would be like, I mean, it's like I don't know, going through a triathlon with no training. Like I was just being pushed around, and I could feel it
Yeah.
physically because my mind was doing all the work, but also it was telling me to do certain things and it was
Mhm.
doing things to my body. And I talked a little bit about that in the entry, how I ran
Yeah.
through an airport, just certain things I would do that would be like
Yeah.
not like me. Um, s-
Mhm.
so anyway, so one, how they're making me feel because I didn't have the support. And then like my doctor, the medicine I'm on now, which I like, he's like, "This is
Yeah.
gonna make you gain weight, so I don't want you to have this medication." And I'm like,
Well, you kinda skinny,
"Thank you."
so
That's what I was
you
thinking. I
could
was thinking, like, I was like, "I want a little thickness," I was the skinny cousin growing up. I could afford some thickness, but that's a good part of like cultural, right? Because it was
Yeah.
a white guy, European guy, and he's like, I don't want you to gain weight, but I'm thinking like, well, in my culture, if you have a little thighs,
Well, you can be
you
thick.
can be thick, and I like my thickness I'm getting from my medication now. So these are all the things that like I had to go through. I think the biggest thing is like because I was in such denial, I wasn't able to be assertive and advocate for myself. Right. So I couldn't say
Yeah.
I didn't say like, I don't mind being fat. I just want to be healthy, you know.
And that's something that comes, and like with this podcast, talking to patients in different therapeutic areas, that is one of the through lines is, yes, the advocacy for yourself, advocating for yourself, but you don't start advocating for yourself on day one like you do on year three,
Mhm.
year four.
Mhm.
It is a journey
Mhm.
and it is a muscle that you ultimately have to build. And, I'm grateful for you to even acknowledge that because so many people need to hear
Yes.
that even for me, the patient I am today is not the patient I was day one
Yes.
or year one. This is something you kind of train up to be through lived experience, but also through being intentional about educating yourself.
Yes.
And so I want you to, so Jessica entered, was it a contest?
It
Like
was.
a writing
It
contest?
was.
Okay, so Jessica entered a writing contest and she was a winner
Mhm.
and her entry was about her honestly, I think it's like a preview to your book,
It
right?
is. Yes.
Yeah, and so it was beautifully written, and she won. And can you tell I was not mentioned by name, but I was a part of that.
Mhm.
I was very honored to be a part of your story just because I love you. But can you take us back to the airport
Mm,
story
mm,
that I ultimately kinda
mhm.
had a little guest appearance in? Can you take us back to that
Sure.
story?
So, yeah. So, in India, so I talk about India a lot, but I had to study abroad in India. And I was probably, I think I was 25 at the time, and 25 or 26. And it was going well. I was traveling, I was meeting friends, enjoying the food, just living my best life. And one day I started having anxiety. And it was triggered because my sister told me my mom was sick and she was in the hospital for a heart attack. And so after that, I had
Mhm.
started like, okay, panicking. And and then I did like all millennials. I'm like having a midlife quarter life crisis. I thought I was just having a quarter life crisis. I'm having panic attacks. I'm having anxiety. So
Yeah.
I went to a doctor there, well, actually the ER, and they prescribed me some anxiety pills. But I was afraid to take them because I'm like, I'm in India. I don't want to take any pills in India. So I didn't take them.
Mhm.
So fast forward, I had a group of friends, and they said, "You haven't slept in 3 days," and I literally don't remember, and that's a big part of bipolar disorder. You have an episode and you really don't remember. It's kind of like being blacked out drunk. You just don't remember a
Wow.
lot of it. So I was manic, but I don't remember it. I just know I was up for 3 days. So my dad
Mhm.
basically, someone got in contact with my dad, and they're like, just she needs to come home now. So he basically called the airport, and they knew me by name. And I'm just hearing my name, but mind you, I'm in manic episode, so I'm there, but I'm not really there. Things are just
Yeah.
happening, and I'm just kind of going with them. So I got to the Indian airport in India, and they kind of like escorted me on the plane. I remember that. But then when I got to my layover in France, I was alone at the time, so I had no one really there to like be there with me. And
Yeah.
I basically kind of took all in my mind, I ran track in high school, so I was in a track meet, and I took all of my clothes off for some reason. I was like running through the airport, and I ran on the tarmac, and I don't know how I got there.
I don't know how you
I
got
have
down there
no
either.
idea. I have no idea how I got there, but I remember the plane, like me, and then there's a plane. And so,
What?
yes, yes,
I did not. I don't think we ever talked about this part.
yeah. So that happened in
Okay.
France. Yes. So then they took me to customs because I guess I was like a threat. At that point,
Of
a
course.
security I was a security threat. So they took me
Right.
to customs. I don't remember much being in there, but I remember they let me go to the bathroom. I went to the bathroom, and I started trying to braid my hair to the back because I was going to jail. And I
You
looked,
was ready.
yeah,
That's how you know you from Detroit. You
it's
said they got me.
I know these.
Let me put these cornrows in my damn head.
I wonder what different people's episodes are like. But mine is always like I'm going to jail, and I'm like, oh, and like set it off, and. So I felt really like I did something wrong, but I was manic, so I was like,
Yeah.
I'm in jail. Victoria felt like a movie. Like I was in a movie, but this was actually I was actually acting out all of this stuff.
Yeah.
So they I started, doing that, and then they said, um somehow I remember them calling my name over the intercom. I got my clothes back on, and then they put me on a plane in France. On the plane in France, I was Rosa Parks, and I was like, "You can't put me in the back of the plane." And I started trying to sit in the front of the plane, and they were like, they apprehended me, and then they put me down and made me sleep. I ended up going to sleep. I got up, and I was still just kind of like not myself. And
Mhm.
and then I ended up in New York, and that's when I think my dad was kind of contacting people throughout it, and he's like, "I'm going to call Victoria," and and that's when you came, and I just started crying
Mhm.
because it felt like a familiar face because I was just like in all these things were
These
happening,
strangers.
yeah, and they're strangers, and I'm out of my mind, and I saw you, and I just remember crying, and then you're like, "What happened? What happened?" And I saw you kind of getting emotional, and I just didn't know what to say.
Mhm.
Um, so that's mania. And it's like, and so when I say I was moody in college, it was nothing, these are extreme, like you're not yourself. You're just, you know, and because I didn't know what I had, I didn't sleep for 3 days. Now I know. If I find like I'm not sleeping a little bit, like if I didn't get eight
Yeah.
hours, I'm going to make sure I get 8 hours.
Yeah.
But then I had no clue. So one of the things about bipolar disorder is triggered by lack of sleep. It can cause lack of sleep, and it can also be triggered by lack of sleep, and it can also be
Yeah.
triggered by travel. So I had a whole perfect mix of all these
Oh,
things
yeah.
going on, and so that happened to me, and I came down, and even on the ride to the airport, Tanja was with me, and I felt good. My sister and my dad, they were with me. I think it was just my sister, and on the ride back, and she was really solemn. but I was so sensitive to everything that was going on around me. So if I'm in the back of an
Yeah.
ambulance truck, I'm really in the back of a police car. My sister's sitting next to me, and she's real somber. We're on our way to a funeral. My mind. So when
Mm,
you're in these manic episodes, I was interpreting things that were going around me, um, as either sometimes I'm interpreting things really well, like I'm like the president of the United States, but sometimes I'm interpreting it, you know, very negatively. Um,
mm,
so that was my first episode, and then I come back and they're like, "Well, you just need some sleep." Yeah,
wow. Wait, when you're saying when you after you were with your sister and your
mhm,
dad,
yeah.
and you guys went back
We
home
went to
to
Detroit,
Detroit,
and so I went to Detroit.
and they said you just need some sleep.
Yeah, because I was still having anxiety, so I was unmedicated. Typically,
Yeah,
no one can go through an episode without having what's called a breakthrough drug. So there are drugs out there, thank God, that if you're having that, you take it and then it's over. And
it can break
it
through
it
the
break
episode.
exactly. So you could
Mm,
sleep for and you might sleep the entire day, but you'll wake up
yeah.
and you'll be yourself again. But because
Wow.
I didn't have anything, I was literally still having an episode you can have an episode for weeks. Um,
Wow.
bef- yeah, yeah,
So thank you for sharing. You got me crying over here.
yeah,
Because we've definitely talked about it,
yeah,
all of this, but
yeah,
it's been a while since
mhm,
that incident,
yeah,
and I think it was a part of your journey
mhm,
of how much we're talking about this and how you
yeah,
talk about it.
yeah,
So I remember getting the call from my uncle, your dad,
mhm,
like, Jessica needs help. She is
mm,
on the plane and they're doing like a landing or something. I don't know if it was an emergency landing or what, but she is going to be in New York and you're in New York. So, and at the time I was living in Harlem. And so I get the call and I'm like, okay, like if somebody I love needs help, I'm just going to pull up. That's just how I was raised. And so I was like, well, what's going on? I need more information.
mm,
And he was just like, I don't know. She's sick. She's sick. That's all he said. Sick.
yeah.
I'm thinking vomit
Vomit,
sick,
yeah,
like that. I'm like, okay, where's she at? He's like, she's at the hospital. Go to this hospital. And so I go. I remember. I think the hospital was in Queens or something
mhm,
like that.
yeah,
So, if you know New York, when you live, first of all, I was poor. I was a poor 20-something-year-old in New York. New York, like if you don't have money, to get to Queens, you are taking the train and the taxi is going to be, first of all, you can't even afford a yellow cab at the
mhm,
time. So, and we didn't have Uber, or I didn't at least. And so I was with one of my best friends and I was like, come with me. He's a guy. I was like, come with me. I just don't know what I'm getting into. My uncle didn't tell me nothing and I don't know what's going on. I don't know if I'm gonna have to bring her back with me. She might need to be carried. Like, come with me. He's like, okay. He just come on this mission with me. And so we get to the hospital and I'm looking for you.
mhm,
I went to emergency first. You weren't there. And I'm like, how is she not in emergency? This is clearly an emergency. So then I go like other places and no one knows where Jessica Reese is. And I'm like, what is happening? And so I'm like getting worried. So then one lady says, have you checked the psych ward?
mm,
And I say, no, why would I check
mhm,
the psych ward? Why would I do that? She was sick and it's an emergency. And my uncle just told me to come. She's like, just check. I said, okay. So it was like in a weird spot. I had to kind of go around the hospital and I go and I'm like, hey, I don't think my cousin here. I don't really think she's here, but is a Jessica Reese here? And they say, no. So then they said, but wait, Reese?
oh,
I said,
yeah, that's what
yeah.
it is,
And
yeah,
you were under Marie Reese
and
or
I
something
changed
like
my
that.
name, that's another thing,
Yes.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so they couldn't find you because you were under Marie
yeah,
Reese. And I don't know, I guess you didn't have ID on you or something like
I had
that.
nothing,
And I don't know what it was.
yeah,
So I was like, okay. They're like, well, who are you? I'm like, well, I'm her cousin. They said, well, we don't let cousins back. So I had to show my ID. Luckily,
we had the same,
you had said Reese and they let me just to
yeah,
be nice. I said, she don't have no family here. I'm the only family here. Something's going on and my family needs an update. So just because we had the same last name. I had to show them my ID. They let me go back there. And so on the monitor outside your room, I see Marie Reese. And I'm like, what the hell, you know? And so I go, and then, you know, we have the same middle name too.
Yeah.
So we're
Ain't
both
that
Marie
something?
Reese. And so they were like, okay, it's
Okay, you can
legit.
go.
It's legit. Let her go. And so
Wow.
I'm like, let me back there. So my friend waits. I go back there, and then I find you. Obviously, I'm relieved and emotional. And I'm like, Jessica, what happened?
Mm-hmm.
What happened?
Mm-hmm.
The nurse says something about you, you know, being at the airport, taking off your clothes or something like that. And I'm like, huh? You know, what are you talking about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But when I asked you, you didn't say anything. You just cried.
Mm-hmm.
You knew who I was, but you just cried.
Ooh, girl, I know.
And obviously I
Yeah.
cried
Yeah, I
because
know.
I could tell something was wrong. And so they didn't really diagnose you or tell me much. They just said, we're treating her. She's going to be fine, all these things. And I'm like, so what should I do? Can I stay here? They said I couldn't stay. But I said, well, you know, well, let me take her stuff or something like that. And I knew that your dad was coming. And so I stayed for as long as I could, or as long as they would allow. And then I left. And I, you know, obviously I told, you know, Uncle Dwayne what was going on. And then he picked you up and I knew you were safe.
Yeah.
So fast forward to a few weeks later, I was home in Michigan for like
Yeah.
a holiday or break or something. And I came home and you came to get your bag. I kept your bag for a really long time.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
It was like a straw wooden bag. Like you could tell it was from India. It was like something like that. And so I kept the bag and I brought the bag with me to Michigan to give it to you. So you and your mom came. And this is what I was mentioning earlier. You and your mom came. I gave you the bag and we were talking and you were like kind of laughing about it. You were like,
Yeah.
oh, girl, thank you. You know, like I don't know what was going on. Like I was tripping. It was like tripping. Like I was tripping, man. It was a tripping. And then your mom was like, you know, like her crazy self, she was tripping. You know, I could tell like she was also in denial because while we didn't have, and I know I didn't have a diagnosis from you, while we didn't have that, I knew that it wasn't, you was just tripping.
Yeah.
I knew it was more.
Yeah.
Because what I saw in the environment you were in and, you know, the state you were in, I knew it was something more. And I was super worried. And so that moment, I will never forget the moment because it was at my grandma's house. Both of y'all were like laughing at, you know, and not hysterical laughing, but just kind of laughing it off to get past the moment. And I remember that. And it stuck with me because it made me feel like this might be extra hard for Jessica considering other people also being in denial.
Yeah.
And so that leads me to what you were mentioning about the support or lack thereof. And so I'm going to pause because, you know, how does it feel hearing that story back? Like you reciting it, but then also me kind of sharing that experience.
Ooh. I mean, honestly, I had forgotten the Marie part because I did change my name. But I would say I look at myself with empathy now. Because hearing that, and I'm just picturing if it was someone else, I would just be, you know, to know like this is
I was a
you.
wreck.
Yeah, I know. And to know that this is you, but I know you, and this behavior is not you. And now you're
Yeah.
in a hospital, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and to go through that, I look at myself with more empathy now because it's like, that's a lot. And to
Yeah.
laugh it off, it's kind of like, you know, I couldn't believe, you know, I can't imagine doing that now.
Yeah. You were looking at me nervously,
Mhm.
almost communicating with me without words that you knew that it was bigger than that
Yeah.
too. And neither one of us said anything.
Yeah, but we didn't. But
We just moved past the
yeah,
moment.
but I want to thank you for being there because, like you said, I cried. I kind of, that was me kind of feeling like something's going, you know, something's wrong, but I'm glad you're here, you know. And I can't talk
Yeah.
about it because I don't know what's going on. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was a lot.
Look at us.
I know.
Messing up my makeup. And so let's talk more about that support. So you're married.
Mhm.
You went on and got married and all the things. You had babies, you know. Tell me about that. How was that experience? I know your husband was around
Mhm,
pre-diagnosis, and
mhm.
so kind of during that transition. And so what was that like navigating a relationship and then, having this diagnosis and then being in denial and all the things? Like what was that like?
Victoria, that is a lot. It was, you know, I have to give my husband a lot of credit because he was my
Mhm.
friend. He was my friend first, and we hit it off. He's also a Reese. He was a Reese before.
I know.
Yeah, he was a Reese before
So her last name is Reese, like the candy, and she literally married another Reese
I did.
who is not black,
Yeah,
by the way.
he
So she
Jewish.
just randomly gets another Reese, which is so crazy.
When I tell this story in my book, but when I first met him, he was so sweet. We were in a cohort, so it's like a graduate program. It's like 20 people, so you're gonna get close to the people there. It's just it's not
Yeah.
like a big class, but we emailed each other. Oh, you're Reese, you're Reese. The whole time I'm thinking it was like S Reese, so it's not the full name. I'm like, oh, this is some black girl from Detroit, name last one of my long lost cousins. And then I met him, and it was like, oh, like a white Jewish man from Louisiana, born in Israel. It was like completely different, but we literally hit it off um, from the first day, and we just were like best friends ever since. And because we were in that
Mhm.
small cohort, we really kind of leaned on each other. And so he was always like, it's interesting, and I talk a lot about healing in the book, but there's so many ways to heal, right? And I think
Mhm.
medication is treatment, which will help your healing. But I think love heals too because he just, even though he was kind of discouraging with medication, he would hold me sometimes and squeeze me when I was going through episodes, and every reminded me, you every time you go through those episodes, you get stronger, which I found to be true. Um,
Yeah.
so I think you know I really did want him to help me, be more supportive with the medication, but he never made me feel like there's something wrong with me. He
Yeah.
never made me feel like, you're inherently like a messed up person, and and it's like a dirty word what you have, this
Yeah.
condition that you have. And that's how I was feeling, with my parents a little bit because they would, maybe they felt some blame. Maybe, as a parent, when your child is sick,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
automatically, especially if it's a mental illness, a lot of illnesses are passed down. So they may have felt like maybe there's something I did wrong as a parent. Or maybe there's some
Mm.
trait that I have that I pass on. So I don't know, I don't shame them for their lack of support, but I figured maybe they just felt guilty, like I had a part in it, so they don't want to fully accept it, because they feel
Yeah.
like they're to
I'm
blame. Hmm.
I'm sure it's layered.
Yeah,
It's guilt as a parent,
yeah.
because as parents, it don't matter what it is, you
Hmm.
just feel
You feel
guilty.
guilty.
Like, it's your
Yeah,
fault, even if you didn't do it to your child.
yeah,
They scraped their knee, it's your fault.
yeah,
I wasn't watching them or
yep,
whatever. I shouldn't have
yep,
let them outside.
yep.
It was probably that. I'm sure it was also, um, denial
Hmm.
because of the
The
stigma
stigma.
around mental health disorders. And then also it was probably just not understanding.
Understanding. Just no
And,
clue.
like, I'm not gonna name a name. I'm
Hmm.
not gonna name the
Yeah,
things. I'm sure it was so many things,
yeah,
and so we can't do anything but give grace,
yeah.
and that's the beauty in some of these conversations because we the patient, it just doesn't affect the patient. It affects the people around
Hmm.
them too,
Yeah,
and so it's like you have your journey of being a patient, and then they have theirs of
hmm,
being patient adjacent.
yeah.
And so that it takes them time to learn, educate themselves, to be in denial, to be in acceptance, and then to be able to talk about it. Because it's like we want to educate our loved ones too. When I'm not in the room, how are you educating other people on what's going on with me?
Yeah.
And so that kind of leads me to a question about, Sam. Do you feel like he ever had a hard time explaining it to others, or
Mm,
did he not explain it for a while?
mm.
Do you know that?
It's a really good question. I think it's the second part. I think for a while he did not explain it to people. I think he was supportive to me in my face, and like he would even visit me if I was going to like a mental health institution. He would visit, but it took. I think what happened was it was starting to impact his work because what people don't know, bipolar disorder is I can actually have it's a disability. So I could
Yeah.
technically file for disability with this disorder because you are what's the word? You are not incapacitated. I can't think of the word, but you can't function.
But unable to
You
do
can't, yeah,
certain
exactly.
things or function
Any
in
day
certain
to day,
capacities.
anything. I literally cannot do anything. I can't even brush my teeth. I barely can
Mm,
get out of bed when I'm in those depressive episodes. So he would have to shoulder the burden of, or the responsibility of taking care of kids and then taking care of me and then taking care of himself. So I think what happened is his boss at the time had a wife who also had suffered with the mental illness. So he was able to,
mm.
yeah, so he was able to
Confide in him.
confide in him. And then, so, cause it came to a point where he had to tell him something like, the reason why I'm not
Something.
performing at work is because of this. And
Yeah.
so that was like one of our biggest challenges. And then of course, when I came back, um, I, and that's the title of my book now, We Come Back, not How Am I Alive? Sorry about that. But when I came back,
Pivot.
I would have some guilt. I'm sorry, little plug, but I would have some guilt because, like you said, he had to be a caretaker. Um,
Hmm.
and That's a really good question because I think how we look at ourselves, right? Like you're a husband and you're also a caretaker when I'm going through these episodes.
Yeah.
So I think I think having a boss that had that common ground, I think that really helped him to talk about it. And I think that was like when he started to talk about it. Um,
Yeah.
and
And so family, like your parents,
mhm,
I know so Tanji is her
mhm,
sister. That's my sister cousin. And I feel like Tanji's an empath,
mhm,
and I think she's likely very understanding
yeah,
and easy to talk to. Um, but like we talked about, parents, it's like they are protective and
mhm,
maybe a little bit of denial or just overprotection. Did you guys have not a come to Jesus moment, but like, did you have a breakthrough with family or anybody that where you were like, this is what's going on with me. And this is, how I need to care for myself, or this is what I need to do, or say the name, or like, did you have any breakthrough moments with anybody that may have had trouble accepting your disorder?
mm, no,
Okay.
not really. Um,
Okay.
even if I try it, so recently, actually, I was in Detroit like last week, and my mom was sharing a story, and I was standing right there. She was sharing a story to another relative, and he said, she was going through her thing, and like it almost made me feel like I have a different personality. It almost felt like um she was talking about it as if I was like another person and not this condition is inside of me.
Mm,
And so I just remember feeling uncomfortable. So we have not had that talk, but I think it might be time to really, and I think I don't do it because I feel like she just won't understand or won't accept it. Um, Maybe she has some shame behind it. And so I think that I kind of want to give her space to try to, um, because she knows what it is now. Like me and her have conversations, but I'm trying to give her space to really come to terms with it. So we really haven't had that come to Jesus moment yet.
have you experienced shame, Jessica?
In the beginning, yeah, yeah.
Not now.
It depends on who I'm talking to because they're like if
Mm,
I so sometimes this is also this couple of years ago, maybe last year, I started a job and I had an episode right before, and that was the first time I had told an employer.
mm,
Yeah, that was the first time I had told an employer, and she was extremely supportive. Um,
wow.
Extremely supportive. She even gave me she really, this just, you just really don't know like how many people are really good, but she gave me a shortened schedule so I could like really um manage my life because I had kids and everything. but she paid me the same, you know, and I reached out to her and just shared how kind she was, but that was the first time.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
there were other situations. It's always dependent upon the person's response, right? So if I say I have a bipolar disorder and they're just like, oh, that crazy condition, or um,
Someone said that to you before?
someone said she didn't say crazy condition, but it was just her tone was like she was talking and like, I think they're bipolar, and like kind of said it in like a
She didn't know that
she
you had.
didn't know. And then I end up
Mm.
telling her, and she's like, what? So people, like you said, like, this is Jessica. And I had looked at myself as like, I'm Jessica Reese, I'm not going to have bipolar disorder. And so in a lot of people's mind, they're just associated with someone that just is in a mental institution. They should not come out. So I have had people kind of give me that tone. And I had another person when I shared it as a friend, and she's like, that's like my old uncle has manic depression. He can't get out of bed. That's all I know. And just kind of dismiss me. But I'm like,
Yeah.
but I really have, this is something that I deal with too.
Right.
So in those
And this
moments,
is also what it looks like,
exactly.
you know?
So in those moments, I did feel
Yeah.
some shame because there's just still so much misinformation out there, and there's so much, there's like a lack of education and even like portrayals in media, you know,
Mhm.
um,
Yeah.
you don't really see. I think Grey's Anatomy was an episode I watched. They had a really good portrayal. One of the doctors, he had a manic episode, and he came down and he was crying like I was, and he's like, well, I don't know what's going on, and that was a good portrayal because we don't know what's going on. It's not like
Yeah.
I didn't choose this.
Yeah.
Um, but
Okay.
yeah.
And so we're talking about relationships. You
Mhm.
have kids, and we almost talked about it, before we started the interview, but you have kids. You're a mom. And so what is their knowledge or relationship with bipolar disorder in you when it comes to you?
Mm. So we shared this earlier. So my kids don't officially know. And I do believe I told them maybe when they were younger, but y like, they're not gonna
Yeah.
remember. They're not gonna remember. I gotta
Yeah.
tell them like 10 times. And even if I
Right.
told them, they'll be like, "What are you talking about?"
Right.
So they don't really know. They have been in a part of some episodes. They have been, so I had an episode where, I thought, like, my husband was, like, being abusive to the kids. It was a lot. And so that the last major one where I had to really where I mean I had already started taking it seriously where I had to like really like push for the right medication. Um
Yeah.
that was probably the worst because I ended up telling this I was working at a school and I had an episode at my kid's school. And it was my son,
Mm.
thank God he was not in his classroom because I had like messed up the classroom. It was really bad. And he was just there at the school, but he didn't know. And then, but they did know that I did not pick him up that day from school. And I had to go to a mental health facility um, but they were so young that they didn't really know what to ask. They didn't know. I think maybe their dad said, like, mom's not feeling well and she needs to go,
Right.
feel better.
Yeah.
So they don't know the diagnosis or anything about the mental illness, but I definitely will tell them because it can be hereditary. There's research that there's hereditary elements to it, and I'm always talking to my psychiatrist about what I could do as a parent now to maybe stave off some of the symptoms um,
Mhm.
as they're coming up, but they don't really know. But it definitely is the hardest part by far of the condition.
I can imagine. And if they were listening,
Hmm.
let's say your oldest, if he was listening, what would you say about him listening to this episode and what he may have just learned about his mom?
Mm. Um, I would want him to know that mom lives with a mental illness, but she is not her mental illness, and she's still your
Mm.
mom. And
Mhm.
even though she may have moments where she needs help and to heal, that it doesn't change who she is to you.
Mhm. I love that. I love that. And so, I wanted to talk about one more thing if you felt comfortable
Mm.
talking about it. You had an experience as it relates to motherhood
Yeah.
with losing a
Mhm.
child and dealing with
Yeah.
bipolar disorder.
Yeah. Oof.
Is there anything you
Oof.
can share about that experience?
So, we had, I had 3 boys, I say. I have 2 living sons, and we had and 1 in heaven. So, on November 7th, 2018, which was actually my oldest son's birthday, I woke up to find
Mhm.
that, my, 3rd son had passed away from SIDS. Still, that's been the di cause of death from what I know. And he had probably passed already in his sleep by the time I woke up. And so I woke up and thought I was planning a birthday party for my son and end up having to plan a funeral for my infant. And those were some really dark. I mean, as you can, I mean, there's really not much to say, but um,
Yeah.
it's just something that I named it "How My Life" because it's kind of like there's a lot of for some one person to hold, and
Yeah.
it's a lot, and I feel like for a long time, and I'm still, I would say, just starting to kind of see the sun, but it was just heavy, just completely heavy and just dark, um, and not really able to do much. I was thinking outside of just the day to day. I really don't know how I got through a
Yeah.
lot of those days. When he passed away, and then on top of that, we had my husband's company had a plane crash the next month. I don't think we talked. Yeah,
No.
they had a plane crash. So 4 of his executives, which are like 2 of them were his friends, they passed away in a plane crash. So a month after, and we had like 5 funerals basically within a matter of 2 months, and
Wow.
so it was just, you know, you know, felt impossible. Like this God is really only him was really the only thing that got us through. But I did have an episode. So I lost my son. So I had grief on top of depression, on top of mania. And so
Mhm.
with bipolar disorder, sometimes depending on because all patients are different, but some people will have mania and they'll have like the fun kind. Like I would say, I don't want to say any names, but something West will have like these grandiose, these grandiose, and I have had those too. These grandiose, like and really ultra creative type of episodes. But sometimes you'll have
Mhm.
what's bipolar depression where you'll have more. Your mania will be very dark, so it would just be like
Okay.
either you have cancer and you're dying, you have 3 days to live. So those
Yeah.
kind of things. So just managing that, I would say my faith, leaning on my faith was like the biggest thing. Um,
Mhm.
and just allowing myself to grieve, just, if I felt like crying, I would cry. If I needed some time away, I took the time. Um, and then taking my medication to um those are like the things that really kept me going during that time.
Yeah. Well, I'm so proud of you. I was worried. I think we were all worried. Obviously, we
Yeah,
were all
yeah,
grieving the loss, but we were worried about you. We would be worried about any
yeah,
mom, but we were particularly worried about you of what it would do because
yeah,
we understood,
yeah.
we would understand. And so, um, I love you.
I
I'm
love
proud of
you
you.
too. Thank you. Yeah.
I realized that I had not taken the time to define bipolar disorder. Yeah, let's take a
Yeah.
moment to write about
Okay.
that. Bipolar disorder is a chronic mental health condition characterized by extreme shifts in mood, energy, and behavior, alternating between periods of mania and depression. And so I wanted to get back to questions. Where are you now? Like, you are writing a book. Tell us a little bit about your book, but where are you now with bipolar disorder? Like, you seem to be healthy,
Mhm.
but where you are with I think acceptance is a journey.
Mhm.
It's like not something you land on and it stops. You come to different points
Yeah.
of it, right? And so where are you now with bipolar disorder? And then tell us about your
Okay,
book.
for sure. Thank you. So right now, I would say um, I'm leaning into not being concerned about being normal. I think that was like my thing. I
Okay.
wanted to just feel normal and be normal. And so I'm learning to want to be healthy instead of being normal.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
I'm trying to do whatever I can, like not just my medication. So now I'm taking supplements um in the mornings and
Mm-hmm.
being more consistent with that and just learning to give myself more grace and really looking at it as an illness to manage, and I can't cure it, but I can manage it. So I'm really kind of being like, guess more of an active participant instead of
Yeah.
just, okay, I'm going to get through this episode, I'm going to ride this wave, but really like, because there are ways to, I've, heard stories about women who've hadn't had episodes in 10 years, and I really want to get to that place where my kid never has to see that, you know,
Right.
because it's scary. It's scary.
Yeah. And you mentioned that you had went to a support group meeting.
Mhm.
Was that consistent or did you stop? Did you like it?
I did stop only because um, it was a little strange. It was I think the demographic it was mostly men, and it was me and another woman, and we just felt, and it seemed like they had known each other for a long time, and
Okay.
even the man who was over it kind of said, "Well, there's another support group with more women." It was just very. I didn't feel comfortable in it, and I don't know. I just didn't feel comfortable, and so right now I haven't been to any more support groups. I'm hoping to find something that's more like with more women, maybe my age, maybe more Black women, people that I can relate to more.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I am open and looking for that because bipolar disorder is like it's a very serious mental illness. Like there's a your life expectancy is kind of decreased when you have this condition, either because of
Mm-hmm.
suicide or because certain heart illnesses that you're more prone to, or like the medication that I'm on now can cause kidney end stage renal failure. So there's a lot that comes with it. So I definitely, and as you get older, everybody's brain deteriorates as we get older, and so
Right.
this is an illness of the brain. So um, I definitely do want to get in more support groups because I think that's I'm going to need that as time goes on.
Yeah. A lot of people, encourage, well, let me not say a lot of people encourage support groups. In the community that I'm
Mhm.
in the space that I'm in, because I do this work, um, finding community is
Yeah.
encouraged and support groups are encouraged, but people don't talk about that next step.
Mhm.
So you find a support group, but then when you get there, what are the
Mhm.
vibes?
Mhm.
Is it my
Yeah.
vibe? Do I feel
Yeah.
comfortable? Is it too many
Yeah.
men? Is it a lot of people who know each other and I'm an
Yeah.
outsider? Am I newly diagnosed and they're more veteran
Mhm.
than me? It's nuances to finding
Yeah.
community. And I think that is where our organization, We Are Ill,
Mhm.
came in and has been able to shine because I understood from my own experiences that there's a nuance to this.
Mhm.
It is not just, oh, there's a support group and we all in this together and let's go sit down and talk about it. No, it's
No.
so different for so many different people. And you kind of have to find like communities have cultures
Yes.
and you have to figure out the community that has the culture that fits you.
Mhm.
And that was what I was looking for. I went to one support group meeting and I was like, nah, this ain't for
Mm.
me. Now I didn't keep searching, but I felt isolated or ostracized or whatever the word is because I wasn't physically disabled like other people in the group. And I was only one of maybe two or three Black people. And it just felt like I can't really be myself
Mhm.
here because I think that they are going to look at me
Mhm.
like I'm like, girl,
Yeah.
shut up.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and even though no one said
Yeah.
that to me,
Mhm.
I felt like when I was talking, it was
Mhm.
like, girl, shut up.
Yeah.
And even if I feel like that, I don't want to feel like that.
Yeah.
And so I ended up creating my own. And so I do encourage you to, look into more and explore more. I think the community of it has really been a game changer. I
Mm.
feel like it saved me in a lot of ways
Mm.
because no one understands but
Mhm.
another person.
Mhm.
And being in a room full of, I mean, honestly, other sick people is not, it doesn't have to be this circle of grief.
Yes.
It could be a circle of rejoice,
Mhm.
of liberation.
Mhm.
We are dealing with this together and we don't know what's ahead of us. We don't know, there is no cure, but we are in this together
Mhm.
and I don't feel judged by you
Yeah.
because you are like me.
Mhm.
And so definitely encourage that. And so tell me where can people find your book? Or is it out? What you want people to know
Well,
about this book?
okay, I know, right? Well, I'm it's still in process. But it is I basically turned that entry into full length memoir. And right now
Okay.
in the revising phase, soon to be in the editing phase. The goal is to have it published
Yeah.
by this summer. And I do
Okay.
have a cover, but it's basically I just want people to find themselves in this book and to really not feel alone and really as a culture to move towards healing no matter what it is that you're going through, and stop trying to be normal or you know we're stigmatizing each other, even with people who are dealing with depression and feel stigmatized and feel like, you know because you look strong on the outside, that you're not dying on the inside, or your life is not unfolding
Mm-hmm.
on the inside. So I just it's very raw, and I want people to find themselves in that book and to feel seen.
Mm-hmm. What made you write it? I mean, you're a writer already, but
Well,
what made you write it?
good question. I think one day, I think it was when I'm trying to get my dates correct, but I just had a day where I was really low, just really just
Mm-hmm.
I just needed to get it out because, like you said, I had, and I don't know if it's a family we come from, like the Reeses. We laugh a lot, and we don't really kind of share what's really going on inside. And so I think I really, during Jacob and during all those episodes, I was trying to have a strong face, especially for my kids too. But it was just a day where I just wanted to get everything out. And I remember I was going to make a Facebook post, and I sent it to Tanji, and she said, "Don't write a Facebook post to enter this contest." And it was just this random contest. And it was
She
called
just found this random
just
contest.
she found the contest. I don't know if she was before, and it was called Real People, Real Stories, about people struggling with mental health. And I was like, this is perfect. The contest was literally due 2 days later. I wrote the pages, the entry was 10 pages. I wrote it in like a day or two. Yeah. So it was just pouring out of me.
Wow.
And so and so when I was there, the whole goal is that you turn your whatever you're doing into a book. And so that being in that
Oh,
sorry, the prize, yeah, the prize was a stay at a writer's colony. And at the colony, you're encouraged to write a book. And so I started
okay.
writing during that time.
Wow. So I didn't know
Yeah.
that Tanji found it. I didn't know none of
Mhm.
that. Well, that's
Yeah.
interesting. Okay. And so, do you mind sticking around with me for a call-in segment where
Sure.
we hear a question from someone?
Sure.
Too often, we are too quiet about our health. When talking about it can really save our lives. So, let's talk about it. No, really, let's talk about it. And that's the name of the segment. And so, Dribble, you got a question for us?
Hello, my name is Brooklyn Armstead, and I am a licensed mental health therapist in Columbus, Ohio. And I'm calling in today because I have clients that do not want to take medication. And so, for those clients, I am wondering what are some vitamins or other supplements, or what would you suggest for people who are not interested in psychiatric care?
So the question is, what supplements? Well, we are not doctors, so we cannot technically advise or recommend any supplements. But I would suggest, and Jessica, I think you can answer just in general about someone who doesn't want to take medication
Mhm.
and go a more holistic or natural path. But I will say I would encourage this person there are actually professionals that specialize in more natural things and methods so that you can have I think we have to treat the whole person, right?
Mhm.
And so, yes, there are medications that your doctor can prescribe, but then I I believe in pairing it with other things, supplements as well. And so that doctor who will prescribe you a medication, they likely won't be the one prescribing you the other holistic options because it's just not the practice in which they and that's a part of their profession. And so there I would seek a professional or encourage them to seek a professional that practices alternative medications that are not just, Western medication, because you want guidance on that too. You can't
Mhm.
be taking all the supplements
Mhm.
together now. I
Mhm.
don't think a lot of people think you can't just be picking your own. It just don't work like that. And then I think, if someday that person or that patient does decide to take a medication, you want to make sure that the supplements are going to work well or pair
Mm.
with the extra medication if they ever come to that day. Jessica, you got any thoughts on that?
I think you said it amazingly. Yeah. And also books too. I think I picked up a book called Med Free Bipolar, and that introduced me to some supplements. But I 100% encourage someone to get help because with supplements, you have to be very regimented. And like you said, you have to make sure they're the
Mm.
right ones. Um, there's no contraindications, like they pair well with your medication. So I definitely would encourage books and a professional.
Yeah, I would say that. Thanks for the call. I
Mhm.
appreciate the question.
If you have questions related to your health, patienthood, navigating the healthcare system, advocating as a caregiver, finding community in your wellness journey, or anything related to being Black and ill, record it in a voice note or write it in a letter and send it to me at podcast@weareillms.com.
Well, Jessica, this was great. I I believe you said this is like your first interview talking about
Mhm.
bipolar disorder. So you're
Yes.
very brave. Very proud of you. I love you.
Thank
And
you.
thank you for choosing me and allowing Patient and you to learn more about your experience and how you're feeling. And of course, your book. We can't wait to read it and share it with everybody because you have a really amazing, heroic story. And I want you to know that.
Thank you so much. Love you too, cousin.
Reese gang. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave us a 5-star rating wherever you listen. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, leave us a review. It helps people find the show. And if you know someone who finds what we talked about today helpful or any other episode helpful, please share this episode with them. And if you want to connect with us on social media, you can find us on Instagram at @PatientInYou. Until next time, I'm Victoria Reese, and you're listening to Patient in You. Patient in You is a podcast from We Are Ill. It is hosted by me, Victoria Reese. Our producer is Tribble at Ask Tribble Inc. Original music by Laura Burke. Video content produced by Joshua Duane and Matt Ellis. Don't forget to find us on Instagram at Patient in You and subscribe to our YouTube channel at We Are Ill MS for the full video version of each episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend and leave us a 5-star rating wherever you listen to podcasts. It helps people find us. For more information about We Are Ill, our programs, and our initiatives, visit our website, weareillms.com.
The Patient in You podcast is for informational purposes only and not medical advice. We Are Ill is not a medical organization. Always consult your physician before making health decisions.
This podcast is sponsored by MD Serono and AbbVie.